That's all right. You can mute your mic. There's nobody yet in. It's just us two. What's going on? Why is nobody on? But I can mute you from here.
Sorry?
It's okay. I've just muted you so no one can hear you, but nobody's yet joined the webinar. Don't know why. 7 o'clock. Time does it start? 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday, August 16th. In progress. 29 registered. Okay, good evening, folks. You should be able to see me now and my colleague John. Good evening to you all. Welcome to, I think this is our 4th webinar of a series of summer webinars. Talking about all things running a grassroots community sports club. And we picked a different topic each week. And this week we've got 2 topics which we're going to talk about and throw around some ideas. One is communication, and the second one is all about customer experience. I'm Mark Fletcher. I'm one of the team leaders here at Pitch Hero, helping run your club website. But this isn't about websites or anything technical. It's very much about themes and topics about running a club and trying to run a more successful club, a bigger club with more members, happier volunteers, and better customer experiences. And if this series goes well, then we'll continue it throughout the season and try and bring in more ideas and more people and more experts, and also reach out to you, the clubs, to see if you've got any great case studies or ideas that you wish to share with us. But we're kicking off this sort of 5-6 week run, working alongside John, who's been in community sport for over 20 years now, has a fantastic website called Sports Supported, which I highly recommend, which has got ebooks and videos and lots of really useful things for volunteers to get hold of and to learn from and to share at your club. So I really recommend you reach out to the website Sports Supported and reach out to John. So John, you should be able to hear me loud and clear. Good evening, you well? Oh, John, switch your mic on. You're still muted. Let me see if I can unmute you there. Here we go. First mistake of the evening. There we go, John, try again.
I'm very unmuted. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Sorry about that. First technical hitch. Previously, we've been doing it in the offices, but we're trying to do this remotely now and be all 2021. So, John, tell us a little bit about your background and the theme of the presentations this evening.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So I've been lucky enough to spend 25 years working in sports clubs. A lot of community sports clubs, but also working some professional clubs, semi-pro clubs, governing bodies, all sorts, from Qatar to Hong Kong to Ireland. A great experience. So I've learned a lot. I've kept my ears open, and every day's been a learning day to see how people do things, how clubs do things, what they do well, what goes well and what doesn't go so well. So I'm kind of a purveyor of best practice. Some of the key points in terms of community clubs are keep things simple. Too many, we try to do too much, and we don't have the skills to do a lot of stuff or the people to do a lot of stuff, and we end up not doing anything. Well, I'm a volunteer myself in a club, have been for many years, so I've got experience of trogging around the United Kingdom, being in loads of clubs, meeting lots of governing bodies, and getting some experience to pass on. And we've been looking at sports clubs and how some of them, we should run them as businesses. Think them as businesses. Just, they don't have to be businesses, but if we think of them as very simple businesses, because we do sell things. We have to influence people to buy leadership. We have to influence people, sorry, not to buy leadership, to buy sponsorship. We have to influence people to buy membership. And as along with that, we have to hang on to them, because if we hang on to them and give them good customer service, they're very valuable for us. We have leaders within our community sports clubs, and some of them have great experience and some of them come to it without any experience. So we've been giving some little tips, some bite-sized ideas of what you need to think about as a leader as well. So today, what we're going to look at in focus, we do 10 slides, very much a question of you getting involved, ask us some questions, and I just give a little nosegay of things, and I'm going to focus on customer service today and why it's so important. So I'm just going to move here to the first slide, which talks about what we did last week. And as I said last week, we looked at sponsorship and membership, and we looked at how you have to influence people to buy your sponsorship and influence them to buy your membership. And we focused on the fact that everybody who wants to, if you like, buy sponsorship, they have wants and needs. The club wants and needs the finance, but the business wants and needs everything from customers, new customers, reputation, motivated staff, perhaps build its brand. So there are wants and needs for the sponsor and a member. If you become a member of a club, you have wants and needs. And we broke down the different types of members and the different types of wants and needs, so we could be efficient in trying to influence people to become members. We looked at those, and we then went on to look to see how valuable they are when we get people in, and how if we retain a member over a certain years, it's very, very valuable. So how do we retain them? Well, if we just look at certain things, let's say the value of providing a great experience, the value of customer service is really about how we hang on to people. It's not complicated. But if we attract and spend all of our time bringing in a new sponsor, spend all of our time bringing in 10 new families, unless we give them a great experience or what they expect, we'll lose them. And that's a travesty. So there's certain things we need to look at. First of all, as I say, we influence them to join. Secondly, there's a realization that if we're a business, and it's the same in our clubs, it costs us a lot more to go out and find new people than it does to hang on to them by understanding what their wants and needs are. So it's a really valuable asset to the club to have somebody thinking about the experience that everybody gets. And I'm going to extrapolate on that in a minute. Once we have them, as I say, we have huge value. And once we want to keep them, it depends on customer service. And where does that start? Well, in simple terms, if I influence a family to come to my club, I know that there's certain things they want. I know, for instance, that if my family, I can get to the club, I know from research that's been done by Kellogg's that, first of all, the parents or the adults bringing the children have wants and needs for the children. And they might be, yes, a safe environment, good coaching, but it's also fitness, it's also friends, it's also a good experience and a learning experience. I know that they also have wants and needs for themselves. They want good communication. They want to be welcomed. If possible, sometimes they want to do a bit of fitness themselves and socialize. So when we start to say, how can we hang on to people? Once we've won them, we have to understand and say to ourselves, what is it they want? And we need to deliver it. If, for instance, it was a business, we knew from last week that a business will either want one or two or three of these. They'll want to find new customers, they'll want to retain customers, they'll want to build their brand, and they'll want to build their reputation. We need to understand that and deliver it if we're going to hang on to them. The customer journey is also interesting. the experience of that business or that member starts at the first phone call. It starts at the first visit to our website. If it's a poor phone call, yeah, what you want? Oh, just come along on Thursday night. Yeah, come along on Thursday night. They don't get that at John Lewis. They don't get that in McDonald's. They don't get that when they're spending money elsewhere. They expect somebody to say, yes, hello, lovely to speak to you. We would love to see you. Why don't you come along? Let's say Thursday night at 6 o'clock and we can meet you. If it's a business, businesses have huge competition chasing them for sponsorship. If we aren't professional, they'll go somewhere else. So what do we do if it's a family? Our first thing in the family is, if we communicate with them, we tell them, we understand what they want and need, and then we get them to come probably to a visit at the club. But they have to be welcomed. They have to be met. They have to be made to feel valuable and looked after. That way, we'll hang on to them if we deliver later on what they want. The business is the same. The first meeting, if we turn up very professionally, if we give them a lovely presentation, we've got a foothold. They'll stay with us. If we turn up the first time they come to us and we're in t-shirt, shorts, and say, yeah, we'll be with you in a minute. Look, we're just finishing off this. Sorry, you understand, don't you? They'll go, well, I don't need this anywhere else. I don't get this anywhere else. And they'll move on. So the first time we meet people is really important. When we meet them, we have to understand what their wants and needs are. And along this journey, we have to, if we get them on board, keep asking them, are we delivering you what we want? If things change and they're unhappy, we have to look after them. A family, for instance, over 2 or 3 years, will bring hundreds of pounds into a club. We can't afford to lose them. So if they complain, something's not right, let's address it and we'll hang on to them. Deliver what they want, be it a family or a business. And then they become loyal and we hang on to them. What are some of the clangers I've seen? I've seen people who sign up businesses and don't speak to them again till next year, till it's time to renew. It won't work. Because during that time, when a business is spending money with you, they want to know that they're getting what they want, and you've got to know that they're getting what they want, so you have to talk to them. Secondly, I had a company called ProStream once. We spent quite a lot of money with a sports club, and we sponsored them to an event, a lot of money. And he just said, I said, where do I go? He said, oh, just come along, you'll be looked after. Well, there was no car park. There was nowhere for me to park. When I went, he wasn't there to meet me. When I went to ask someone, they said, oh, I think sponsors go upstairs. Went upstairs, there was no signage, nobody to meet me. I went home. I thought, well, I've wasted my money here. He said I was going to get all of this, get looked after. I didn't. So next year, when he phoned me up to say, can I have that same chunk of money? I said, no, I'm afraid you can't. We have to give people what they want, and we have to look after them. So delivering what is expected. I once worked at a football club who said, oh, we've had 3 sponsors in 3 years. We're going to ask the next one if they'll stay for 2 years. Well, what they were basically saying is that we didn't give them any customer service. We took the money from them. We didn't go back to them and ask them what they're getting, what they were getting is what they wanted, and they left. So, in summary, the benefits of having a long-term relationship with someone by looking after them and giving them customer service are loyalty, income, advocates, and great supporters of your club. Any questions, Mark? Have we got any questions that have come through? Because if you have questions, you can write the questions by clicking somewhere, Mark, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot to mention that right at the start. But yes, if you look on your control bar on the right-hand side, there's a box there that says questions. So by all means, anytime, hand in some questions. I've got a few questions here, John, and it's something that we've talked about in the past, particularly with new members and recruitment when you're growing your club, that first experience, and how it's so important for clubs now to identify somebody at the club to welcome new members, to put their name, their photo on the club website so that parents have someone to aim for. Because turning up to a club on a Sunday morning, car park's packed, there's 100 kids running around, there's coaches with their head down trying to organize 20 kids. It's very nervous, isn't it? Walking up, trying to find your right age group to start with, and then who to ask, how to get involved. if moms and dads have one person, they can just say, "Hi Jane, hi Bob, this is my son, this is my daughter, she's 12, where do I go?" That makes life so much easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, there's two things there. Firstly, I see with a lot of clubs they have a welcome tent or a welcome gazebo. So people have a ready point which to go to. But secondly, it's also the culture mark. If the club is a very friendly and family orientated club, everybody that they stop and say, "Excuse me, I see you're in a tracksuit. Can you tell me where to go?" Should be saying, "Of course, are you new?" It isn't just that one person. It's the culture of the club. If the club embraces and knows how important it is to embrace a welcome all, it makes a massive difference. Massive.
It does. And also, you can't rely on parents. I remember I swapped clubs when I was about 11, and I went along with my dad. And my dad didn't know my age. So for the first 4 games, I was playing for the team above. I was getting my head kicked in, and I thought these lads are a bit bigger. Then someone actually asked me what year I was in at school, and they said, "Oh, you should be on that pitch over there, lad." So even parents get it wrong when they don't know how old you are. But the idea of a gazebo or a tent's a great idea, and something that could be really common. You don't have to do it all season. You know, your peak new member registration is August, September. So the weather's still pretty good then. You could nominate a couple of people, some helpful volunteers, just to sit outside with a tent, gazebo, big smiley face, and just welcoming all those new people and sending them off in the right direction.
Well, and that does for the away teams when they arrive, Mark. Actually, the gazebo I think is a good idea all year round, because they have a point of contact where we've all probably arrived at pitches, and which pitch are we on? Where do we go? Yeah. If there's a gazebo there that says welcome or center or information, and there's somebody there, then they know exactly where to go, and they're told exactly where to go.
That's very true. I was also told a good story the other day when, because normally inside changing rooms you have the chalkboard or the marker pen of which pitch everyone's playing and what change you had to go in. But in juniors now, there's strict rules about who can go in there. I remember a dad telling me that he was asking his 8-year-old son to read out what was on the chalkboard so everyone knew where they were going. A bit of a disaster. So put that chalkboard by the door or by the outside so parents can read it as well. And then parents know where they're heading, not just the kids inside the changing room and the coaches. Other thing that came to my mind, customer experience for your existing members as well, because like you made a great point, retaining a player is a lot cheaper than attracting a new member. I wonder how many clubs actually do club surveys where they send out a survey to their members, which could be anonymous or named, and they could ask their members some pretty easy questions. What are you missing? How do you rate the club on these things? How do you rate us on team management? How do you rate us on changing rooms? How do you rate the quality of your coaching? How do you rate the quality of your bar or club facilities, car parking, all those things? Because the club committees tend to be quite disconnected from the actual people playing. You know, particularly in adults, there could be a huge age gap between a committee and people, and also the parents that are you know, head down trying to organise the club and the committee could be quite disconnected from the parents who turn up week in, week out to watch. How important do you think running a survey could be for a lot of clubs?
Oh, essential, because then people will say what they think. And we make so many assumptions. I was working with the ECB and we did a survey, and one of the clubs came back and they'd asked the question of why do we not have so many ladies and the children staying late at night, and why there's not many coming? And the survey came back, said, well, because the loos are absolutely filthy, so none of the ladies will go to the loo, they'll all go home. And B, there's no white wine for them, and many of them drink white wine, and the white wine isn't chilled, and there's no sweets for the children. So they learned in one fell swoop that they weren't much of a community club. They were a male-orientated club, and they wanted to be a community club. So things had to change quite quickly. So very, very important to do very simple surveys.
Yeah, and obviously women's sports, women's football, rugby, cricket is growing at a huge rate. But I remember one of the pivotal points then was clubs understanding that what a teenage girl will put up with is very different to what a teenage boy will put up with. A teenage boy will get changed in any sort of room and shower in any kind of shower, and you know, not moan, and same for adult blokes. But girls, they don't like changing that much, and they certainly don't want to go to a dirty changing room or a dirty shower or somewhere that boys have been in. You know, you've got to get that absolute environment right for a female team, which is very, very different to perhaps the older environment that's been around for years and years, which boys and men played in.
Exactly.
Last point here, which I noted down, was with the customer experience as well. It's also important there's no hidden surprises. I think that's important. A chap in our office was discussing the other day how he'd taken his 3 kids to Alton Towers for the day, and he was saying, you know, tickets, it was an expensive day out, you know, they'd packed up, school holidays, they'd gone off, had a great morning, you pay on the gate to go in and the rides are free, and they sat down at lunch to have burgers and chips or whatever, and it was over £100 to have lunch at Alton Towers, and he just said that was insane. You know, he hadn't planned for it, didn't know about it, it caught him out. And so good customer service, it's always to make sure people are well prepared, make sure that all the information about the club, what to expect, how much it's going to cost, what kit they need, where they're going to get changed, how long they're going to be there for. That's really important, isn't it? So there's no surprises, there's no misunderstandings, people can go relax and they've got all the information before they turn up.
Yes, good communication and good information.
Absolutely.
Absolutely essential. So and that's what parents love, what especially around the junior sections, they thrive on great communication, knowing exactly where they're going, exactly what they need, and then exactly where to take people, and that really gives them a great comfort. It's a great experience if that happens. What they don't want to do is turn up and their son or daughter feel awkward because they haven't got a piece of kit. So communication, yes, which we're going to talk about in a minute, is really important.
Well, there we go. Let's lead us up to our next slide then. So do you want to load that up? If you minimize that one on your screen now and then load up PowerPoint B, we're going to talk through communication now in a grassroots club. Obviously, Pitch Hero with our club websites allow clubs to communicate through putting news items online, sending out emails to your members, but that's always dependent on having those members registered with your club website so you can contact them and email them. But one challenge that many clubs have, particularly the bigger clubs, is just the size of their membership. I think our biggest club now is about 4,500 members, but our average club size is somewhere between 300 and 600. 600 is probably 500, 600 is probably the average now. And that's a lot of people. So with communication, one of the tips I'll chuck in right at the start is to give people roles within the club. So someone who's in charge of communication for the seniors, perhaps, someone who's in charge of communication for the juniors, and even then you might break that down further. So you might have men's, women's, you might have colts, juniors, youth, because communication is something that needs to keep going. It's not a one-off job that you do once a year. It's 2 or 3 times a week. And it's simple things, it's simple messages, it's keeping the wheels turning over. It's not 1,000 words. It's just a constant nudge and the constant noise and the information throughout the season. So I'll hand over to John now, and he'll take us through your slides.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do here with only a few slides was to really give some just some key messages in terms of communication. And I wanted to start by saying I think it's really important within clubs that you recognize there are 2 types of communication. There's a communication which is internal, where we're trying to cascade information down to all the participants or to all of the volunteers. But there's also external communication, which has slightly different outcomes. The external communication will be there to inform people, to build the brand or the image of the club, but also to sell things. So we need to recognize the difference between the 2. Not that we're going to focus on those today. Internal communication, I'm not really going to talk too much about this. A lot of that internal will come from the leader or the leader group, the leadership group, where they have to inform people of changes, inform people of roles, inform people of about participation. And it's important that we do make sure we use the channels that are relevant, and that's what I'm going to talk about in a minute. As I say, external communication is a completely different beast, where what we're trying to achieve from that is completely different, but it could be brand building and it could be selling. And as I say, I'm just going to, on tonight's 10 slides, talk about communication channels and why they are different and how they are different. A lot of people do an awful lot of emailing, and what I find quite interesting when I do the webinars around, or the workshops around is that a lot of people don't recognize that relatively few emails are actually opened. So I was with a club about 3 weeks ago, and the guy said, well, I sent out 200 emails, so 200 people knew about it. Well, no, they didn't, because our average open rate is 20%. Our average moving rate is 10%. So if we took it as that, he'd only have informed 70% people that something was going to happen. Only 70% of people or 80% of people opened the email. So we have to realize that not all emails get opened, and a lot of people now, when they send out emails, they use things like MailChimp, and I'm sure many of you come across that, or equivalent types of email marketing, so you know who's opened and you know who it's gone to, who hasn't opened, and that's very useful information for you to use. You should also realize that if you're sending things out to a loyal audience, then the open rate will get higher. So if we're sending things out to a membership, our open rate may go up to 50%, and I've even seen it higher, but we still don't get 100%. So there's 50% of the people don't know that it's there. And we obviously know nowadays we have to adhere to GDPR so that that people can unsubscribe. As I say, you can use a mail service such as MailChimp, which is free, up to, I think it's about 2,000 emails a month now, not quite sure, but Mark, you might know that, because we know exactly who's opened, who's bounced, which emails have bounced. We want to clean our emails up, so if it's bounced, we want to know, and therefore we want to remove them from the list. Key things with emails is, because so few get open, what makes people open them is what the subject line says. So keep it as interesting, as relevant as possible, and don't send out too many. You'll all know this, because people just don't open them if you send them out too many. So first, there we've got an email channel, but there's different channels, and that's what I'm trying to express tonight, is that I'm going to go on to express, is that you have different types of people who will use different types of channel of communication, and you need to consider that when you're sending things out. So there will be people who will adhere open emails, but if we went to things like signage, it's another way of communication, or banners. Not signage at the entrance of the club is another type of communication. It's very useful because people can see it as they walk in, but to me, signage on posters, on notice boards, we're hoping someone's going to open it, we're hoping someone's going to walk past it. I don't really see the value if we've got social media and email as well. It's a backup. But more and more, we've got digital signage. So digital signage at the entrance to clubs is becoming very, very powerful, where we can communicate information on there about what's going on. And so much so now that if you wanted to put a sign up at your roadside, there are companies that'll come and let you know that they'll do it for free, but they'll take the advertising. But you can put your messages on there if you're trying to attract people from the community. So the second type of communication channel is a sign or a poster. Moving on, we obviously know social media, great reach, social media, and it's two-way reach, from allowing relationships to be developed. You know all this, and it's allowing you to target your audience, because we know which people favor which social media channel, and we can increase our targeting by buying ads in certain social media channels. So third channel of communication, social media. Different types of people will look at different channels. So if we're sending things out to adults, for instance, we need to consider which is the most effective channel of doing it. If we're sending things out externally to businesses, first of all, perhaps we're saying the message could be put on a notice board at the side, a digital notice board at the side of the entrance, or we might use email, or as I'm going to talk about in a minute, we might use LinkedIn. And socially, social media is fantastic because of the different channels, but we can get sucked in and we can spend a huge amount of time on it. So just very basics. Under 18s, as we probably know, target Instagram and TikTok. 18 to 24s, probably Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. 25 to 50-year-olds, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And you need to create a very simple plan if it's going internally, using the channels that you know will go to your target audience. Just wanted to mention LinkedIn here for those of you or us who are trying to create commercial income for the club. This is a great channel to businesses. I think it's 240 million people just in Europe who use LinkedIn. It's a business channel. If I was in a club like I am, and I wanted to find out all of the people in businesses local to me and the jobs they had, and I wanted to link with them, I would do a search on LinkedIn, find out, use the filtering, find out who it is, who's local, who's the CEO, and try and get them linked to me. It's a great way of you linking future commercial businesses to yourself. LinkedIn. It takes a little bit of time, but it's simple to use. And if I was selling sponsorship, I probably would go on LinkedIn and try and research all the CEOs or sponsorship directors within my region, within the northeast of England where I live. It takes time, can be very effective. Finally, I am also a great believer in telesales. Not telesales, but teleinformation. If we had 200 members, for instance, who were participants and we wanted them to renew, what I've seen, which works really well, is for the club to choose one night, to choose 10 people who are prepared to phone up people they know, give them 20 people each, and you phone 200 people in one night and say, hey, membership's up. Are you going to join this year? Are you going to rejoin this year? You can get it done in one night, rather than dribs and drabs and chasing people. If you have people who are skilled on the telesales, then you can actually use them to cold call if you have people who are trained. Perhaps cold calling some businesses to see if they're interested in sponsorship. Perhaps cold calling members who've phoned up, who've been lapsed, and you want to see if they want to come back. But teleselling, please don't forget about telesales, because I just think one night, 10 people, 20 calls each, really effective. So all I've done now, communication is such a massive area, is just to suggest that when you are communicating with people, there are internal communications and there are external communications. You need to know who you're communicating with, and therefore the channel you use is absolutely critical. It isn't complicated, but it does take a bit of time. And there's so much more you can say about, but I just needed to pick a little nosegay of information there, Mark.
That's great. Thanks, John. So yes, you're talking about internal and external communication. Picked up a little bit one at the end there about external communication, and there's lots of different external communication. There's your local community trying to attract more members to your club, but then there's your local sponsors as well. How important is it throughout the season to keep your sponsors up to date with what's happening at the club? How many members have come through? How many interactions, perhaps you could say, with their brand or their logos and the club members? And also tell them how well the club's performing and how well the team's doing and how much good their investment, their sponsorship is doing. Keeping your sponsors up to date is a really important piece of communication, isn't it?
Critical, because they feel a part of it, they feel a part of the business, and it also gives them the chance to say if they're unhappy about something.
That's right. On Pitch Hero, we try and encourage people to start the communication journey from their website, because if you post a news item on the website, you can then share it straight away with all the different social media channels. So we have fast sharing buttons for Facebook, for Twitter, and then if you're on your mobile, you can do WhatsApp very quickly and put it out there. And if you have your members registered through team selection, registration, player availability, you can also email them with links as well. There's definitely a huge correlation, and I need to do the stats really, between clubs who post content, i.e. communications, news items, match reports, and the amount of traffic they get. The more content you publish, the more traffic you get, the longer people stay on your website, the more they share that content, and they pass it around. So if you're trying to build traffic to promote your sponsors or raise the profile of your club, then you have to add content, and that's where it comes to having a very simple communications plan. What would, through the course of a week, John, what would a communication plan for the average club look like? Let's say starting on a Monday, so the weekend's gone, so you start on Monday, what would you be communicating throughout the week, Monday to Sunday?
Yeah, well, you'd have to break it down into why you were communicating, and you'd have to break it down from internal and external communication, wouldn't you? I think internally, after the weekend, what we're trying to say internally, what are we trying to say to our membership? This is what's happened. Keep them interested. This is what's been going on, and here's an update of the events of the weekend. So it's like a magazine. It's giving them some information. As you go through the week, we're coming back down to training. So there's information about training and anything that people need to know about the weekend. So it changes slightly, doesn't it? It changes of why you're doing things and when you're doing it, whether you're doing it internally or externally. So as you say, internally, we want to keep people really interested in that website. So everything that happened over the weekend can give us great stories at the beginning of the week. And then it next becomes a bit more functional when we're telling people how to get ready and that they need to get ready for the weekend. And then it's information about telling people where the games are. Externally, slightly different, isn't it? Because what are we trying to do with external information, which could be through the social media as well, and could be through email as well. But if we take social media, what we're trying to do is keep the community interested in what we're doing and to keep them engaged with them and for them to build up the image with them. So that could happen at any time through the week. Again, are they interested in the games and all the depth of information that we go? Perhaps not. Are they interested in that something simple like the Thompsons, who were sponsoring the under-13s, had their banners out, and that the under-13s had a great tournament? Yes, much more CSR, much more orientated towards building their brand and why sponsors are involved and what sponsors have got from it. So it is actually just, it's all logic, really. It's all logic of keeping people interested and building up awareness of what's going on, information going on, and also the club.
Yeah, there's two things to mention. The first one is that as you were talking, I was remembering a club that do two things brilliantly. The chairman, I think it is, or it's somebody who has a bit of time on their hands. They write up a Monday sort of debrief of what happened in the weekend, and they combine senior news with junior news and mini news, and they talk about wins. So you might have the best, you might start the article by talking about the under-11s because they had the best win of the weekend and mention a few players there. And then he'll talk about the senior team, he'll mix in the ladies teams, he'll mix in all the teams, and he writes out a fantastic review after each weekend. And in that, kids and parents read that, and they love seeing each other, mingled in together as one club, because this is one of those kind of committee meeting members that'll walk around on a Sunday and a Saturday and get to know faces and get to know names. And he writes a great piece, and he also takes lots of photos and links a fantastic album to it as well. Not many match photos, it's photos of parents and the kids and things like that. And that's a great piece that is always one of our top performing. And the other thing which a lot of clubs do is they call it the Thursday Roundup or the Thursday Bulletin or something silly. They come up with a daft name for it. And it's really telling people where they're going that Thursday and who's playing where, who's playing away, who's playing at home, who's on what pitch, what time they kick off, if there's a junior game before the seniors on a Saturday, what to expect, is there anything going on at the clubhouse? And by the time you've written all that down, you've got a fantastic article telling people what direction to go in. And you might have a football game on the Sky in the clubhouse as well, or as a rugby match or a cricket game. Those two sort of articles that clubs could write at the start of the week and the end of the week, I think, are really important. And you can find a volunteer who likes writing, who's prepared to just go around and write those things out. And the last one, which I think gets overlooked, is the local paper. Those local papers are still read by millions of people. And I think the print for the Friday paper, it's normally Wednesday lunchtime to get something in. And you just need to encourage all of your team officials, your coaches, to just send off 200, 300 words to the local editor with a photo, and 9 times out of 10, it'll appear. And it'll be photos of your team with the sponsors on. It'll be a write-up, and that's a fantastic thing for any club, isn't it? And not enough clubs appreciate that, not only because the coaches or the team officials don't read the local paper, and so they don't bother doing it. But I can assure you, millions of people still buy the local paper, and your team, your club should be in there every week.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, fighting for space. I know that if I've been at committee meetings where one of our old chairmen, he would go nuts if we weren't in. If there was a week had gone by where our sports club didn't have 3 or 4 items in, it'd go absolutely. It'd be a point of order on the committee meetings, and he'd want to know which coach hadn't sent something in and how important it was for everyone. And one of the reasons why is because the old boys in the town and the older members look for it. You know, they buy that local paper to read the reports from the club they used to go to or the club their kids used to play at. And that's the reason why they buy the paper, to find out about what's going on at the club. So one of the biggest pieces for communication, I think, is always reach out to your local press, because they're short of press. There's normally 2 journalists or 1 journalist these days covering a sports desk at a local paper. They're desperate for things to put in. And if you can send them 300 words and all they have to do is copy and paste and drag your image in there, and they've got 3 or 4 of those, they've done half a page in half an hour. Bingo. They love that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and that, Mark, totally sums up what we were saying earlier, that you choose a channel of communication for a certain type of member, and you need to make sure all of your members receive the information. So if you don't use that local press, then you're missing out on a whole group of people who do part of your membership, part of your family, that don't take social media.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Not everyone's on social media. You know, I use Instagram. I don't use Facebook at all anymore, the booth Facebook. So if the club puts me on there, I wouldn't see it. So you're right. You've got to cover multiple bases for multiple different types of members and club members.
Yes.
Okay there, folks. John, do you have anything else to add this evening?
No, that's all. I think it's just to go back to what I was started off by saying, is the hundreds and thousands of clubs I've met, it all comes down to choosing something simple to focus on, and nothing is complicated. Just keep it simple, but do it well. And so if you're doing communication, please don't try and do everything all at once. Just decide what you can do and do it well. But if you want to hang on to your members, and you want to hang on, we'll always hang on to a percentage of our members, whatever we do. But if we're going to be really successful, it's that extra 10%. If we can hang on to them, it's really valuable for the club. So just think about the service, the experience that they get, because they pay for it.
Absolutely. And what about next week? We're going to talk about interacting with your community.
Yes, and some interesting stuff on events that I've been looking at, and from Ireland, where Strictly Come Dancing variations are very popular and earning a lot of money. So types of events and why you do them, again, and to attract people, and the links in the community. Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, that's it, folks. That's for tonight. That's 40 minutes. Our time's up. So thanks for joining us. If you go to the join.pitchhero.com webinar page, follow the emails, you can sign up to next week's webinar. And in the next 24 hours, we'll be sending out these notes to you. So you can download these PowerPoints and get the information firsthand as well. So thanks for your time this evening. And we'll see you the same time, 7 o'clock next Monday.
Great
Thanks
stuff.
a lot.
Okay, bye.